We are so thrilled to be partnering with Hinge. Hinge is the dating app designed to be deleted. As you all know, I'm a huge Hinge advocate as I met my partner of almost 3 years on the app. Even before meeting him, Hinge was always my go-to app because I met more relationship-minded people here and had some great dates. Clearly, I haven't been on the app for a little while, but I re-downloaded it to check out some of the new features. One that stood out to me was the voice prompt, my best friend's take on why you should date me, where your friend can hype you up. Not only does this make the profile creation less daunting, but it's not always easy to see your own green flags. So to test it out, I asked Yue some fun prompts to get her take on what I could put if I was dating again. So the first one, how long have we known each other? What was your first impression of me and how has that changed?
Julie and I have known each other for almost 10 years. My first impression of Julie was that she's very social, but I've learned that she has a lot more depth to her beyond the social butterfly that she is.
My next prompt, what do you think are my green flags?
I would say she's deeply loyal. She believes in love, curious mindset, and she is fearlessly ambitious.
And then last but not least, what kind of friend am I?
Julie is the kind of friend who will always have your back, no matter what.
Damn, that feels nice to hear. So download Hinge and try voice prompts today. Then find someone worth deleting the app for.
The DATEABLE podcast is an insider's look into modern dating that the Huffington Post calls one of the top 10 podcasts about love and sex. On each episode, we'll talk to real daters about everything from sex parties to sex droughts, date fails to diaper fetishes, and first moves to first loves. I'm your host, Yue Xu, former dating coach turned dating sociologist. You'll also hear from my co-host and producer, Julie Krafchick, as we explore this crazy dateable world. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of DATEABLE, a show all about modern dating where we get to the bottom of why people do the things they do when it comes to dating. We want to know the why. This has been a great first week of I think reopening. I feel like everyone's out and about now.
Yeah, but it's ironic because we're hitting literally a year mark from when this all started. So happy 2-week anniversary / 1 year of what we are. You remember those days when everyone's like, oh, this will be done in 2 weeks?
Oh, I never said that. I never said that. I was like, this is going to be 6 to 8 months. That was my guess.
Yeah, you did. And I was like, don't say that. That's depressing. But here we are. But no, it's definitely a different vibe for sure. I feel like last weekend, I kind of almost felt like it was a similar vibe going out wise to pre-COVID days. Yes, people were out, but it felt just much more congested and the bar scene was kind of crazy. And I'm I actually kind of liked life in COVID.
Me too.
Obviously, I don't want the disease and all that and the fear of going out. But I think for me, I realized that I hit I kind of realized this pre-COVID that I kind of outgrew some of the party life that I once did. Mm-hmm. And I feel it's a weird place because I'm single, but don't want to be doing single type behaviors kind of. I don't know. There was actually this quote I found and put it on Instagram and I'm this sums up exactly how I feel so much. I'm going to pull it up for a second in case people aren't following us. This is your reminder, but it was, I don't miss bars, but I do miss going somewhere with the potential to meet someone. No, I actually never met anyone, but still. I'm that sums it up because it's in your mind, you're if I'm sitting at home watching Netflix, I can't meet anyone. But then when you're there, do you actually meet anyone? But anyways.
I think what people do like about going out is always the possibility of meeting someone.
Totally.
Because you never know. And it gives you this false sense of abundance. There's a lot of options out there because you see them out and about. But the success rate is pretty damn low. At least in my book, it was pretty damn low.
I mean, I've taken inventory of past boyfriends. And I mean, I have met people through friends of friends, at bars. So I do think there is a viable path that way, but I cannot recall since college, or right after college, a time where someone random came up to me in the bar and it became something. I can literally count on my hands the times that's happened to me.
Yeah, I mean, nothing more than a casual makeout.
Yeah.
Might be it.
I mean, that's actually a good segue to our episode this week, because this episode, we talked to Yue's friend, so I want you to give people the backstory a little too on here. But what part of it it was like this whole thing, like, you know, just the evolution of your own self too. Like he started off, I think you would describe as more of like a player type, fuckboy maybe is the term now, you know, like someone that's just not really, you don't see as commitment oriented, but now he's married. So there was obviously an evolution that happened. And I think one of the questions we pose on this episode, or just in general, that's comes up all the time is like, is it the right person or the right time that kind of like switches that for people?
He is the anomaly that we've always wanted to understand, right? He is the guy that I've known Jesse ever since he just graduated from college. So ever since he was like just entering into his adult world. And I'm good friends with his older sister. And I remember just thinking, this kid, at the time, he was just a kid, this kid is going to be trouble because he was like hitting on all of her friends, has so much confidence, no qualms about approaching women. And a few years later, my friend was like, oh, Jesse's doing really well. He moved to San Francisco, very successful, and really like just loving the nightlife there. And I remember telling our Julie about, because his sister's name is Julie too. I remember telling you, Julie, about him. And I was like, this guy is trouble. I knew he was going to be trouble. He wasn't even the type of player who would try to trick you into a relationship and then say peace out. He was just so honest. Like, listen, I'm not looking for a relationship. I'm looking for fun. And girls just flock to him, even though he was so non-committal. And every time I met up with him, he would be with a different girl who was just swooning over him, obsessed with him, trying to change him. And he was just so honest. Like, listen, I'm not trying to get tied down. And then I finally had to text our Julie, and I was like, Julie, I have some news. Jesse is engaged. How is this possible?
I know. I don't know Jesse. I met him once in one of your dance classes, but I remember like all these years you would always like use him as like the example of like, you know, like that guy that got tons of girls, but like didn't want to settle down. So when you did tell me, I was like, oh, interesting. Like, yeah, just, you know, things do shift for people. And I think that actually is an interesting moment because like, I don't know about you, Yue, but I can actually pinpoint the time that it did shift for me when I went from not wanting a relationship to wanting a relationship. And I mean, to the question, is it like the right time or the right person? Like obviously listen to this episode, but Jesse's future wife, they did meet in this stage. So I think there is kind of an element of both. Like I think it definitely was her that pushed him to change, but I also think that like you could point and say like, well, he met her years ago. So obviously some of it was the place of where he was. And I think travel, like we talk about this on the episode, like he did take this time to travel. And I think that does change people a lot. And I know I have like a good friend that took time abroad and came back and was like, okay, I'm ready for like a serious relationship now. And I think sometimes like when you get stuff out of your system, that's like when things change for you. Like I know for me, when I first moved to SF, like I had zero desire to be in a relationship. Like honestly, like I mean, I hooked up with people. I would like go out, like I had friends with benefits. Like I had this guy actually from my high school, which was super ironic, but it was like just what I needed when I moved across the country. Cause it was kind of like a reminder of home that was like not committal at all, but I wasn't looking for that. Like I wanted to just like, you know, build a life for myself, make friends, go out. And then I'd like hit him up at 2 a.m. and I was totally fine with it. And then one person did shift me. I did date him for a bit, but it wasn't like a serious relationship. But I think some of it was like I was more settled in my life at that stage when I did have that shift. And I remember just like cuddling with him. Like this was like someone that was more like a casual relationship with. And I remember like cuddling and being like, oh, I actually like this and I like want this. And that like definitely propelled me to like use like Match.com back in the day and like really start to actually date like an adult.
Interesting. You know, I've pondered this question for so long now because I really feel like my boyfriend right now is so similar to my boyfriend at 25 who proposed to me. So I kind of went full circle, but when I was 25, I didn't appreciate all the qualities that he offered. Also, I kept thinking, what else is out there? I'm only 25. I'm about to settle down with this guy. And that's why when he proposed to me, I had that very visceral reaction of, no, Like, I'm not settling down yet. But I think once I got to a point where I felt like I had seen things and I had done things, I was ready for something more consistent. Then the right person came along after the timing piece was set into place. So to me, it felt like timing came first and then the person.
Yeah, well, I actually found this, like, ironically, you know how I just love to use, like, TikTok in my spare time.
Oh my God, Julie's all about the TikTok.
I've literally never, I've posted, like, once or twice on our Dateable account, but I'm not, like, someone that goes out and makes TikToks, but I just, like, it's one of those, like, weird single behaviors that I, like, do in my spare time when I'm bored. I'm just like, what are these people doing out there?
You are TikTok's ideal customer.
I
Seriously.
really am.
You're like, you're always on it. You share it. You're not trying to get famous on TikTok. Nope. You purely use it as an entertainment platform. It's fascinating to me.
Actually, thinking about this is a little bit of a tangent, but do you remember that Sex and the City episode when, like, Carrie's moving in with Aiden and she's like, oh my God, now I have to cover up my, like, weird single behavior.
Oh, but yes,
and
yes.
I don't know, have you ever, like, felt that way with your current boyfriend? But I was, like, thinking about, like, the weird shit I do alone. And I'm, like, definitely endlessly, like, scrolling TikToks and just, like, laughing to myself is pretty kind of fucking weird. Like, I mean, maybe if, like, I was with someone and we could do it together, it wouldn't be as weird. But that, and just, I also have, like, a total LaCroix
obsession?
Like, addiction, I want to say. Like, because I, like, used to drink Diet Coke and I phased that out completely, which is great.
That's good, yeah.
But now I replace it with, like, bubbly water. But the thing is, like, I will, like, forget to finish it and then it will, like, get flat. So I'll, like, have another one. So I'm just, like, constantly going through them. Actually, maybe this isn't weird single behavior because, like, I remember, like, when my ex was, like, quarantining with me, he's like, oh, I don't think we have enough LaCroix here. Like, we're not going to survive. We're not going to survive this quarantine. So, but anyways, I think those are my two.
You're so basic, Julie.
I know. I know. I'm, like, saying it out loud. I'm like, wow, I sound fucking basic. Like, I guess I don't have that weird a behavior. Did you have anything that you, like, were like, I can't do this now?
I mean, the only thing that I've been called out on is I love to drink out of different glasses and then leave stuff in there still. Like, I can never finish a glass of water or a glass of wine. I just always leave a little bit something at the bottom. And it comes from this really strange, childish behavior where I used to think, like, there are bugs at the bottom of my glass. So I would never drink the bottom of it. I think it's because I found a bug once when I was, like, 6. And ever since then, I will never drink the bottom of a glass. So I just leave shit around. And my boyfriend's always like, do you have enough glasses? Like, Are you going to drink? Are you going to finish any of them? But I've been called out on that before, too, by my mother. So I am aware.
My mother also calls me out on the unfinished LaCroix. So similar. But
oh, you don't finish the LaCroix?
No, I don't. That's the problem. I don't finish it, then it gets flat. So I open another one. And it's just
you're a LaCroix waster.
I am. That's why I go through them so much. But anyways, very tangent. But on my, wake up and look at TikTok, I actually saw something from Matthew Hussey that I thought was like actually so relevant to this episode. I'm like, he like read my mind that we're about to do this intro. But he had a video that said, right person is both right and ready. He doesn't believe in the one, but that people can become the one who is right for you. So he's basically like saying, like, when you have this, like, is it the wrong person, a right person, wrong time conversation, like, they're essentially never going to be the right person because you need to be right and ready. So I've definitely fallen victim to that I'm like, oh, it's the right person, but we're just like not in the right time. I mean, I've obviously tried to restart things with it, my most serious ex multiple times because of that. And I think like it's finally taken me to realize like it's never going to be the right person. Like the timing doesn't ever seem to resolve the stuff. So yeah, I think with this, like this episode, like I think there's definitely an element of right person and right time.
There is something that I've been talking to some of my coworkers about recently is this mentality of when other things in your life are not going as planned, you take it out on the thing that is going well. So even when you meet the right person and you do want to be with them, if other things in your life are not going the way that you really wanted them to go, you will sabotage that relationship. because it's the one thing that is going well and you feel like you can take it out on them. So I do think the timing also comes from you feeling really good about where your life is today. And then you're able to foster a much healthier relationship.
Oh, 100%, like 100%. Like I know for myself personally, but then also like the examples of my ex that was, I guess, right person, wrong time, but maybe wrong person overall, if you're going to look at it that way. It had nothing to do with our relationship, all of it. Like it was his own personal stuff. And like, obviously I'm not going to go into what that was, but like now for me, when I'm looking for a partner, someone that is happy in their current life is like a huge thing I'm looking for. Like, I think it's it's the balance of you're happy in your current life, but you're willing to make room for someone. And that actually is a hard balance to find. And I've been noticing it a lot during this quarantine. Like, I don't know why I keep saying quarantine. Like, we're not even in quarantine anymore. I guess like sure this entire like 2021, like I have like no perception of time anymore. But like this whole lockdown, life isn't as normal time, I guess I'll call it that. I think there's a lot of people using dating apps that are bored and like feel unfulfilled and like are using it to fill time. And I think for me, I'm like, I don't want to be with that person. Like I want to be with the person that's like likes their life as it is, like has a great like base of like friends and family and support outside of romantic, but they also want to make room for that romantic person, because I've also come across the people who are just too damn busy, and like that doesn't work either.
Yeah, you almost want the person. I mean, I wouldn't say you want the person. You should be the person who's not trying to fill a void or looking for someone to come into your life to make things better. You should be in a place where you are feeling so good about things that you want to share these things with someone. And I think I found personally for myself, when I really want to share memories and experiences with someone, that's when I really meet someone special.
Totally. So, yeah, I mean, I guess like we could debate the right person, right time all day long, but I'm going to go in now with this mindset of the right person is also the right time.
I like that. It's a good discussion to have because it makes you take inventory of your previous relationships. How did you get them? What were you doing? What was your life like at the time that you were in that relationship? It's a good way to kind of analyze like your behavior patterns, I guess.
Yeah. And I think like also like this episode, like, I mean, Jesse's definitely like that quintessential person that like did not give dating that much thought.
Right.
Like he definitely was intentional about the way he approached Cassie, his now wife, for sure. But he was not like intentional about like going on dates to find a relationship or to find marriage. And I thought his perspective was actually really good because I mean, I think there's multiple, varieties of men and women. So this is like overgeneralizing. But I do think there are kind of two core people. There's like the people that like fall into relationships when it is the right time for them. And then there's the people that are like so proactively looking for relationships. It's like kind of like we were saying, the balance of being open but not so open that you're like don't have a life. Like if your entire life revolves around dating, like people are going to see that.
There is a point in this interview with Jesse where we say, you broke all the dating rules. And he's like, I did? He had no idea. He's just like, I had no idea there were even dating rules. I really love this episode because he wrote his own rules. He wrote his own way of dating. And he comes, like you were saying, Julie, like there's no preconceived notions about dating. He basically was like, I'm not going to get married until proven otherwise. And then he got proven otherwise. So it's a great conversation. He is the guy I wish I would have known when I was going through that serial dating loop and trying to get out. I wish I had heard this story then, because I think it would have made me feel a lot better about taking things not so personally.
For sure. Cool. So should we do a quick announcements this week?
Yeah.
We have a live stream this Thursday, so definitely check it out. This is available for all our community members in the Love in the Time of Corona group. It's going to be at 5:30 p.m. PST, 8:30 p.m. EST, just for half an hour. It's a quick check-in. It's a really great way to just like kind of live chat with all your community members. People have said it's like the chat on steroids before, so it's always like a really fun time. So that's one announcement. Other announcements that we have have quickly is that we recently dropped a new audio in our series for the sounding board, all about managing setbacks, which I feel like is actually, like, we didn't even plan it this way, but I feel like it's the perfect follow-on for Janice's episode last week of dating trauma, which got an overwhelming response.
Hell
so
yeah.
if you haven't listened to that one, definitely get on that. And then also in the sounding board, just two other things that are coming up. We have Logan. Yuri is actually going to be gracing us with her presence in the book club. We do a book club every month, and usually we don't have the authors come to the book club. It's Gisela, one of our hosts in the sounding board. She wanted to do a book club, so we kind of put her in charge of the book club. But this month, she'll actually be joined with Logan herself. So if you've read How to Not Die Alone by Logan Yuri, we had her on the podcast a couple episodes, and you're in the sounding board, awesome. Definitely check that out this coming Thursday after the live stream. And if you're not in the sounding board yet, you can go to dateablepodcast.com/sounding board. Definitely want to check it out because we also have Ken Page, who is one of our crowd favorites, coming to the Dateable after show. So yeah, you can get all the information there. You've probably heard us talk about the sounding board many times, but if you're new, definitely go to the website and check it out. And if you've been on the edge, maybe this is the time. There's a lot of good stuff coming up.
I understand that if you're new coming into our podcast, this is all really overwhelming. Like, what's the sounding board? Who's Ken Page? Why should I not die alone? I think it's a good time to acknowledge, like, first of all, thank you so much for being a new listener. We always love having new listeners to keep us in check too, right? To keep our perspective fresh. And if you have any questions about any of these offerings, feel free to DM us. We can be found on Facebook. You can just DM us through the Facebook app, or you can find us on Instagram and you can DM us there. We actually check all of the messages. And if you have any questions regarding anything that we do, that is the place to do it.
Yep.
All right. And then shall we go to our sponsors?
Let's do it.
Yay. This episode is made possible by one of our favorites, BetterHelp. Thank you so much, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this episode. What are some things that you like to change in your life to find more happiness? What do you think is preventing you from achieving these goals? The simple answer, at least in our eyes, is you gotta prioritize your mental health. We at Dateable are huge fans of therapy, and BetterHelp can match you with your own licensed therapist and connect you in a safe and private online environment. I was able to start communicating with my therapist in less than 48 hours. So boom, you get connected and you're ready to go. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, and it's more affordable than traditional offline counseling. Their licensed professionals specialize in everything from stress, setbacks, dating trauma. So for the new year, we wish for all of you to live a happier life, and that's why, as a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting our sponsor at betterhelp.com/dateable. Join over 1 million people who have taken charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/dateable.
Awesome. Okay, so shall we get to Jesse and Cassie's story? I know you're all waiting for it.
Can't wait. Let's go. Love works in very mysterious ways, and sometimes we can't explain it. And for our guest for this episode, I guess as someone who's watched their love story unfold, there are a lot of holes that are missing in my head of how do I connect the dots, and also a lot of wait, what moments? Like, how did this happen? When did this happen? So we're going to get to the bottom of it, but end of the day, we're trying to get to the story of how two people went from a solid friendship to now happily married and so in love. So first we've got Jesse. He is someone, I've known Jesse for a long time, and I would have described Jesse in his single days as this non-committal playboy who had a shit ton of fun, who I thought was just out there to explore the world and to explore the dating life internationally, not just in the US. He's an international man of mystery. He currently lives in Carmel. He's 32 years old, originally from Orange County, and he is now married. Jesse, what's up?
What's up, UA? Definitely a lot locked down.
Locked down in a very
Happy,
good way.
But happy in a good way. Yes, absolutely.
I am so curious to hear how you went from Playboy to committed. Like, what was your life before, Cassie, as someone coming fresh on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's fairly accurate. I always had the mindset right after college of I'm not going to get into a serious relationship unless I was really crazy about the girl. I just didn't see the point. I saw a lot of my friends aren't in these sort of half-assed relationships where they were like, lukewarm, and they were kind of like, oh, this is great, this is convenient. But I just didn't see the point of that. I never did. I didn't really have a true serious girlfriend in college or after college. And certainly my parents and some friends were a little bit like, are you ever going to get married? Are you going to settle down? Like, what's your deal? Like, are you just going to, travel the world and be single? But I guess a good place to start would be while I was living in San Francisco, I had actually met Cassie. And we had a what I call at the time a very ideal relationship, which was, a kind of a no strings attached, very casual dating.
Okay, I see we're those types of friends, not just friends. Okay.
Well, yeah. And we were on the same page, at least in the start. It was great. I always felt she was a really cool girl, but my head was never in a place of, this could potentially be relationship material. I was just like, just having fun, da-da-da-da.
And actually, that's the kind of relationship that dating experts will warn you that would never blossom into a real relationship, right?
Yep.
Is that right?
You proved them wrong, Jesse.
Yeah, exactly. So this was about 2014. We had met, and so went on some dates, this and that. In the start, you'll talk to her later, so you'll get her side of it. But it was an off and on kind of thing. And then finally, she was basically like, look, if you're not going to get serious about this, like, go kick rocks. And at the time, I was like, well, a little sad because I did like her deep down inside. I didn't really know how to access that part of my, brain or body then. But I let it go, and I was like, okay, well, she's someone I think would be worth staying friends with, right? Now this is about 2016, I decided to leave the United States to go travel the world. And I was gone completely. I had moved out, everything, end of 2016. And we stayed in touch, just the same way you would stay in touch with a friend over Instagram or Snapchat or text message, exchanging a photo here or a text there and everything like that. And it was interesting because now our relationship had sort of shifted where in the beginning it was almost entirely, very physical and not so much, substantial or conversational. There was that, but it wasn't, so much of that. And now you have where we literally can't be next to each other. We're separated by many miles. And so we just start chatting and sending each other articles and just, talking about this, talking about that, talking about wine. Wine, it was a big part of our conversations. We sort of always liked it, but we sort of started getting into it on a deeper level more and more. Cassie was getting into wine clubs back at home, going to Napa. I was visiting different wine regions around the world and getting really, really into it.
And really, really drunk. I thought that's where that was going.
I mean, at first, that was what I liked best about wine, was getting drunk, of course. But no, now it was actually learning about it. I was in Tasmania and Australia chatting with these winemakers, and understanding so much about the soil and about the flavors, and their passion was exuding, and I was absorbing it. It was so awesome. And so I'm going to all these great wine regions around the world, Australia and New Zealand and Europe and South America. And how do I save this wine? I'm a nomad. I have a backpack, right? I can't really bring this wine home. And so I'm casually chatting with Cassie, and she's like, well, why don't we just split a case? You send me a case. I have this great wine fridge at home. I'll store half the bottles, so I get half, you get half. She has access to all these great wine regions. I have a place to store it. I said, great, this is amazing. This is a great little partnership. So I started in Rioja in Spain, and I would send her a case of wine home, and she would store it, and we'd split it. And then the next place in New Zealand, and the next place South America, and so on and so on. And we had this little collection going, and over time, I was realizing like, wow, her and I have a lot in common. I mean, clearly wine passion and one, but like, everything like humor and smarts and the way that we would talk about different articles and, New Yorkers and cartoons, sending memes. Like, and I was like, wow, this is something here. This is pretty cool. And, here I am traveling the world, meeting tons of new people, like learning tons about myself and just what I want later in life. And I'm like, damn, this is something I probably should, pay a little bit closer attention to.
Jesse, you know what's so funny? Because while you were traveling the world, because I'm friends with Jesse's sister, I remember talking to her. We were texting back and forth, and I was like, I just don't see Jesse ever being locked down because he is traveling the world. He's a free bird. He is just exploring the world by himself. And any girl who can really get with Jesse would have to be on board with his lifestyle. And she was like, I know, our whole family has given up on him. And I remember telling you, Julie, the same thing. I was like, Jesse has gone rogue, but like in a good way. Jesse's out exploring the world. And I think he's going to be a lifer when it comes to his bachelorhood.
Wait, so Jesse, I'm curious, how did you see yourself shifting? Like, do you think it was the travel? Do you think it was, like, where do you think it was that you went, like you were just saying that maybe there's more that you want with Cassie?
First, I'll talk to Yui's point. You're not alone with thinking that, that I would be a forever, bachelor and traveler around the world. And you know what? I was starting to get okay with that and get comfortable with that. I really was. I thought that, you know what? If the right girl doesn't come along and I don't have, feelings of trying to get married, then so be it. I would rather have that and be solo my whole life and fly solo and travel the world than compromise and settle for something that is not everything I want. So I was okay with that. Now, Julie, to your point, when did I know? There were a couple key moments in our journey together. The first was we agreed that we would go on a cruise to Antarctica. Just as friends, and actually a few other friends were joining us too. So it was just going to be like a group trip. So there was that. Then later on, there was, I threw a birthday party in San Luis Obispo and had invited her. And there was a lot of our friends there and everything. And it was one of the first times that we were back in the same area after traveling around the world and coming back. And so now you have all this, these exchange texts and and now actually putting it all together, that's when I was starting to hit home like, wow, the attraction's still there, the attraction piece, which is so important, right? That's there, plus all this other amazing connection that we had developed remotely. Almost like a you got mail situation where you're chatting, a modern day you got mail situation. And it was at that point I was like, wow, holy shit. Like this could be, this could totally change my life thinking back then. And then it was some more time away. 6-7 months later, on that cruise to Antarctica, actually, I decided to change directions in life, and that was it. No more traveling. I was going to do what it would take to, be with Cassie. And I said, I laid my cards on the table and said, this is it. This is, I'm prepared to change everything and move in with you and move home with you. And,
holy shit.
Yeah, she was stationed in San Francisco with her job. So, she wasn't going to travel the world. And I was okay with that because I knew that was the most important thing, our relationship. Traveling will always be there, and I did it, nonstop for 2 years, and it was amazing. And I could have kept going for sure. I mean, I made it to 70 countries. There's 100 plus more, whatever. But that relationship that we had established was more rare and more unique, and so I needed to really pay attention to that. And so that was the end of Nomad Jesse, and he came home.
So there wasn't really like a pivotal, like, oh, I need to be in a relationship. It was more just like, I'm really just loving being and talking to Cassie and I just want her in my life.
No, I didn't need to be in a relationship. I needed to be in a relationship with her. That was the difference.
Well, the way you just described this whole experience, traveling the world will always be there. That will always be an option. The world is not going anywhere. But being with Cassie may not always be there. So you wanted to really grab this opportunity and put some urgency behind it. That is really fascinating.
Absolutely.
Did you guys have any like talk about being more romantic up until that Antarctica trip, or like when you laid it all out, or was that the first time?
Nope, that was the first time where I was just, we were sort of there and just like had that conversation where, I was fully expecting or prepared for her to say, no, you want to, you had your chance in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, but I figured I might as well be vulnerable and lay it all on the line because why not? Worst that can happen is she says no, and okay, it sucks, but I'd have my life to go back to and I'd travel the world and keep doing that. But in the event that she felt the same way, then I'd be truly happy and, here we are.
And was this conversation specifically about spending your life together, or was it just like, let's go back and see what happens?
That's a very good question. Given that it was going to change both of our lives, at that point, I was pretty sure that she was who I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. I think you kind of have to be if you're going to do something that dramatic, right? Did I get on a knee and propose to her at that point without being in a relationship? No. But did I say, I'm willing to try to give this a real shot? If you are, yeah.
That makes sense. I cannot wait to hear her side of this whole thing. I'm so excited. This is such a great story. One just like very logistical question that's been in my mind. Like, like before this, you said that you were obviously friends with benefits and friendly. Like, how often were you talking then? And like, how much more did that go to when you were abroad?
During our time in San Francisco, it was an off and on kind of thing. Date here, date there. And there was, some decent communication back and forth. Always a very good time. A lot of fun, a lot of fun hanging out. When she first met me, she wasn't in a space that she wanted a relationship and vice versa. But when abroad, it was almost like much more depth to our conversations since you removed the physical aspect entirely.
It sounds like quarantine.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's all we need from Jessie for this part.
Yeah. I'm super excited to hear from Cassie now.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Let's get Cassie in the picture here. Hi, Cassie. Were you eavesdropping?
I can hear him. I can't hear you guys.
You're like, I'm literally right next to him. So,
yeah,
so nice to have you join us, Cassie. Now, Cassie's 32 years old. She also lives in Carmel, obviously, with Jessie. And she is originally from the Bay Area, also married to Jessie. So I just want to clarify.
Another secret husband around.
So, Cassie, we are so curious to know. I've only seen Jessie, like his whole adventure, and heard stories from his sister's point of view, but I'm so curious now from your point of view. So tell us, go through the whole thing. Like, when did you guys meet? What were your first impressions of Jessie?
Yeah, so Jessie and I met in San Francisco. In all honesty, I probably was his dream girl because I think on the first day we met, I was like, I don't want anything serious. Like, I had just gotten out of a not great relationship, which isn't typical for me, but I was just kind of at that point of like, I just want to have fun, and you seem like a cool guy. And, as time went on, I got more attached to him as women do, right? And, I think when I wanted things to be a little more serious after a while, I think he doesn't remember this, he says, but he, fell asleep in the middle of the conversation of having a serious conversation in terms of like where we were going with this. And so at some point it was like, okay, for my own sake, let's move on. And if we happen to be friends and talk, that's great. And if not, for my own sanity, I think this is kind of just, it's not going anywhere in terms of a serious relationship.
We've all been there. Yep.
Yeah. But what was different with him is that I don't know why I just like couldn't really let him go. He was always kind of that one, like I normally clean break, don't talk to people, but for some reason with him, it was like maybe because it was never so serious, it never felt like we really needed to like break it in a serious way. And so we would go off and on, not talking for lengths of period at a time, but we'd somehow always kind of come back to opening it up on some topic that, we both had shared interests in, or passed a lot of like New Yorker articles back and forth. And we had certain things that we somehow would kind of find our way back into each other's conversation.
I forgot to ask Jessie on the first time, but how did you guys actually meet the very first time?
Yeah, one of his best friends was dating one of my best friends, and they were going to meet at the park one Saturday, Washington Square Park. So we packed up our dogs and the wine and met them the boys at the park, and Jessie was the wingman, and I was one of the wing women. And we just kind of hit it off. Ended up kind of hanging out the whole night.
I see Jessie like a big sister perspective. So I have my own opinions of what the old Jessie was like. I love to hear how you would describe Jessie before marriage and before being in a relationship with him.
Oh man, I'm trying to think of the right words. He was very independent, very like nice guy. He wanted everyone to have a good time, but he also wanted to be having a good time.
Oh yeah.
And so he, after party would be at his pad, and he'd, always be very social and kind of wanting everyone to hang out. But he was definitely enjoying himself, right? He was a successful guy, had his own really nice bachelor pad in San Francisco, and I think was just kind of all about Jessie, in all honesty, which isn't a bad thing, right? It's kind of normal, especially at that age. But yeah, that's how I would describe it.
Let's just take a quick break from Jessie and Cassie's amazing story, and let's go into a couple of our sponsors, UA.
This episode is sponsored by Via. We all know there are things that can help set the mood in the bedroom, but did you know a little THC could also do that? Yes, Via has developed a unique blend of pleasure-enhancing cannabinoids, libido-strengthening herbs, and a low dose of THC all into one mind-blowing gummy called High Love. This gummy, wow, it will awaken your senses, increase blood flow, and intensify any sexual experience. I've been pleasantly surprised by the High Love gummies because it is just the right amount of THC for me to have a good time without feeling sleepy. And hey, if THC is not your thing, Via also offers a wide array of other gummies without it. And everything legally ships in 50 states with discreet packaging directly to your door. So if you're over 21, you can get 15% off and a free pack of award-winning Dreams THC plus CBN sleep gummies with our exclusive code DATEABLE at viahemp.com. That's VIIAHEMP.com. Let the gummies work their magic. Head to viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE to receive 15% off and one free sample of their Sleepy Dream gummies. That's viahemp.com and use the code DATEABLE at checkout. Take your passion and pleasure to a whole new level with High Love from Via Hemp.
As you know, I recently left my corporate job and I've been in total recovery mode, all about self-care. One of my new routines is the nighttime shower before bed. There's just something about washing away the day and that reflection that's been super helpful for me. I've been using one of our partners, Osea's Mega Moisture Duo. This combo body oil and body lotion are so freaking incredible. It literally feels like I'm at a spa. I realized that the secret is seaweed and other skin level ingredients that are normally reserved for face products. And that's why I was so excited when Osea became one of our partners. And, we're so grateful for partners like this because one, they keep the show going, but they're also super good for all of our listeners and for our own well-being. So if you want to have that nighttime bliss like I am doing, you can get 10% off your first order site-wide with code DATEABLE at oseamalibu.com. You'll get free samples with every order and free shipping on orders over $60. So head to oseamalibu.com and use the code DATEABLE for 10% off. Let us know which products you end up going with. Share them in social. Super excited to see what you end up choosing.
This episode is made possible by Armoire. Armoire makes getting dressed easy. With a clothing rental membership from Armoire, build the perfect wardrobe with brands that are high quality, unique, and recommended just for you. All you have to do is take a 5-minute style quiz and select items from your dynamic, personalized closet. The styles show up at your door in as little as 2 days. Then when you're ready for new clothes, just swap them out. Listen, I live in Southern California. There is absolutely no need for puffer coats or any sort of those winter jackets. But when I travel anywhere else in the world in these cold months, I'm often burdened with the task of getting winter clothes. And now with Armoire, I can just rent my winter wardrobe. It's brilliant. Right now, our listeners can give Armoire a try and get up to 50% off their first month. That's up to $125 off. Just visit armoire.style/dateable. That is armoire.style, spelled ARMOIRE.style/DATEABLE to get up to 50% off your first month and never worry about what to wear again. Try Armoire today.
So you said that you started to get more feelings, but did you take it seriously at the beginning, or was it more just how women will sometimes get feelings from a friends with benefits situation?
I think it was, I mean, in the very beginning, you wouldn't know the difference, right? But over time, it was definitely different. Like, again, I think if you ask any of my friends, they would be like, it was always different with him. It was something that I just could never really let go. And yeah, I always just knew that he was, and maybe that's also why we stayed in contact. It was like, I was just really close to him and we shared so much in common, which maybe he didn't really see the seriousness of it at the time. But I think looking back, he kind of acknowledges that, some of those were there.
And once you guys had the conversation about not making this serious, what happened? Did you go on to date other people, have other relationships?
Yeah. The first time we kind of like ended things, it lasted a few months. We slightly tried again and then it was kind of the same situation. So ended after that. And, after that, we were very platonic for years. And yeah, I went on to date other people. The story kind of skipping to the end, I guess. I know Jesse kind of talked a little bit about the Antarctica trip, but we had planned a trip with friends and I was dating someone at the time who had actually just moved into my house.
Oh,
wow.
And was watching my dog while I was gone on the trip. And
shit.
Things had been kind of rocky with us leading up to the trip, actually. And my best friend and I were just like catching up over wine before the trip. And she was like, what would happen if Jesse changed his mind? And I was like, this would never happen. I was like, we have been platonic for years. We actually have like a really good friendship right now. Like, you're crazy. Like, absolutely crazy. But it was so funny. She kind of called it before the trip. Yeah, because we'd seen each other multiple times over the years and just been, flirty but platonic.
And you guys were talking pretty frequently while he was away at that point?
Yeah, but in a really, for me, it was a very friendship manner. I'm not sure what was kind of brewing in him leading up to the trip, but...
So why did you have that reaction to your best friend asking that?
I think from my own protection aspect, right? Like, I had truly kind of let go of him as being in a relationship because I never could see him wanting it. He was enjoying his travels, and I'd even asked him before, I was like, aren't you lonely? Like, I feel like people would be a little lonely. And he's like, no, I have new friends all the time, and I'm constantly stimulated with new people and places and things to learn. And, I think for my own sake, I had just really, really put that aside and was fine with it. I really was okay with it. But when he pulled a fast one on me on the trip, I was also like, I would be dumb if I didn't give this a try. So I broke up with the guy who was living in my house when we came home.
Wait, rewind for a sec. Because we got to get to that moment. This is like that climax of a movie that we're watching right now, that rom-com where the rom really comes out. So
okay, you guys can lead it out of me.
Let's take us to that moment. You had no idea. You did not expect this conversation to happen at all. Yet you've had a deeper connection with Jesse this whole time that he's been away. You get on this trip to Antarctica and take us to the moment of the conversation. What exactly went down?
I think it was like Christmas Eve. He basically like kind of tricked me into like going outside away from the group and just started talking and laying it out, like straight, just cut into it. And I was just speechless. Like, I think it's like when he proposed, like I kind of blacked out, so I'll tell you what I remember. But like it was kind of like just caught me so off guard that I don't know, my memory of it's actually somewhat a little hazy. I remember he told me that I was like a little hesitant. And in all honesty, I was worried that he didn't know what he wanted more than anything. Like that was my absolute worry of if I really risk all of this and give it a shot, even though I didn't think he had any ill intention, but does he really know what he wants?
Right.
But it was worth it to me to take the risk for him. And so I think I told him I needed to like get off the trip and go home and like be in my own house. So I had like a little bit of a clear head because we were cut off from communication basically there. And it was like a surreal world, right? I was like, I want to make sure that like this is reality that you're talking about and you actually mean this, but kind of gave him a commitment-ish that I was going to try to make it work before we went home.
Wait, so when you said you went home, you obviously have this guy living in your place. Like, were you guys like living together in a serious relationship? Like, what was happening there?
Yeah, he had moved in maybe a month and a half before the trip. And things had been a little rocky earlier and I thought we're getting better. And we had a pretty big argument, I think not that long before I left. I had some really bad like trust issues with him, actually. He was losing my trust pretty quickly. And I am like, once that's gone, you cannot get it back. But, I think stepping back, like, I wouldn't have gone home and broken up with him right then anyways, right? But I also, when I stepped back, was like, was he the one that I was going to marry? Probably not. So it's probably worth the risk.
Got it.
Because Jesse could be, right? Like, I had that feeling that if it worked out well, it would be way worth throwing the dice.
Well, you took a huge risk right there. How did that conversation go?
Which conversation? When I got home?
Yeah, when you got home. And by the way, did he know anything about your history with Jesse?
Not really. Like, Jesse was staying at, Jesse mentioned his birthday party. Jesse actually watched my dog the weekend after that. So like April of that year. The Antarctica was December. He happened to be home. And so I had told my boyfriend at the time who I was dating, this guy who I kind of used to date's gonna stay at the house when I'm not there and watch Brooklyn. So he knew that something was there and he knew his name and probably knew that he popped up on text now and then, but he had been engaged before and had lied to me about seeing her and other skeletons. So I was just like not overly concerned because to me, Jesse really wasn't a threat. And so I was like, I'm just not even going to bring it up given the issues that we've had on that topic. So.
And Jesse knew about him, I assume.
Oh, yes.
So he took a huge risk, but did he know that you guys were like kind of on the outs? Like, did you share that with him?
I don't think he really did know that, in all honesty. I've never asked him that. I don't think he knew. But, like, some of his friends, knew the guy, and I think were like, I think she'd be happier with you, right? So I think he did a little scouting for information as well, too. So
I love it. He's like, nothing is getting in my way. I'm going for it regardless, so.
Yeah. Feel really terrible for the bystanders. Still a good guy. I do feel bad, but ultimately this was what was meant to happen for me and Jesse. So I'm so glad that it did.
I'm going to ask this question for Julie, not Jesse's sister Julie, but our Julie. She loves timelines. So you go home, you have this conversation with the ex, well, then boyfriend, now ex. And then what is the timeline between that to him moving out to Jesse moving in, all of it?
So I come home, ex picks me up at the airport with the dog, drives to San Francisco back to our house. I do it within a few hours of being home because we're supposed to go to a New Year's Eve dinner party with my friends.
Oh my God.
And I can't like fake it the whole night. So, yeah, the next day, basically, I mean, he was pretty upset, obviously, moved his stuff out. And then Jesse came back from his travels like 2 weeks later, I think, and moved straight in.
Wow.
Pretty fast.
And how did the relationship develop from there? I guess when he first moved in, I'm sure there was a moment of like, oh my God, this is real. And then how did it change from, let's see if this is really going to work out, to you feeling confident that this is going to be a solid relationship?
Yeah, I would say it took probably a few months to really get the feel of it. I mean, I had barely lived with anyone before. It wasn't very long, and I knew he also hadn't really been in many serious relationships. So I had just a lot of deep-seated worries about how it was going to turn out across a lot of avenues. But honestly, he just was perfect, like straight from the beginning. We really don't fight. I mean, even before COVID, since I quit my job, we were traveling, like, I think we've been around each other 24/7 for like mostly a year and a half now. And things are just easy. I don't know why we click very well. I've told him before we need to fight more because I just, want to make sure that we're both being very clear in our expectations and being honest. And I had a dog at the time too, and he'd never had a dog, and he moved right in and was like perfect. Like, she liked him more than me. Like, it was really upsetting. Like, he just moved straight in and it was like he was meant to be in the house. Yeah, it probably took a few months before I was really comfortable, but there were never really any red flags or signs that had me worried besides just the notions I had in my head of things that would be red flags.
Yeah.
So it's like once he became ready, he was ready, basically.
Yeah, and I see that across guys, right? I have other friends too, that it's like the guys are non-committal to the point where they're committal, and then it's done.
Right. Yeah, the light is on. It's the whole Sex and the City thing. It's like their light is on. When it's really on, you get in, and then that's it.
Simple.
Oh man, fascinating. Well, let's get Jesse back in here so we can have a little conversation of both of you.
Okay.
Now we have Jesse and Cassie back. It's like your names are kind of rhyme. They kind of rhyme and kind of doesn't. It just fits well together. There is one question we haven't asked you, Jesse, is did you know that Cassie and her ex were on the rocks when you had that convo with her? No, you had no idea.
Our conversations were, I wouldn't describe our conversations as getting too deep into like personal relationships. I don't think I would ever ask her, oh, how's your dating life going? It would be more like, let's talk about what's happening in the news. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that. It was much more just other stuff. So I had no idea.
Wait, you knew that she was dating someone, though,
absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. But it honestly didn't matter because I was ready to go in, put all my cards on the table, and whatever she said, she said. I was willing to risk it. So it was probably a good timing that she was not, super fulfilled or happy in that relationship. Otherwise, it might have been a harder decision on her end.
I mean, ultimately, though, like if you guys truly are the right people for each other, like, you obviously wouldn't want to stand in the way of her happiness if she was with someone else that was the right person. So it's kind of like, I'm going to put it out there. And if it's meant to be, then it's meant to be regardless.
100%. And that's how the conversation went in Antarctica, where I, brought her outside and was just spilling my guts out. And like, I'm someone who has usually kept a lot of feelings in. I think she said at the time, how does it feel to be so vulnerable? It's like, but that's how I had to approach it, right? It was like, I didn't know how she felt. And this was crazy to change two people's lives entirely, right? Me not traveling anymore, her not in a relationship anymore. But that's how I was going to approach it. I was going to say, this is, it's sort of like a Hail Mary, like this is how I'm feeling and let me know. So luckily it worked out. And
I don't remember this, but Jesse said I asked, do you want kids? As my one qualifier.
And what's the answer?
After she listened to everything I said and we were making our way back into the boat, she hadn't given me a yes or no yet. She was like, I need to think about it.
Smart woman.
Yeah. And then right as I was opening the door, and she says, but wait, you do want kids, right?
Hey, you got to get the big questions out.
This was not the time to, just slowly get into the thing. This is.
I mean, it's a very honest question for Jesse, right? Like, he doesn't like to be tied down. From all the facts that I knew, I didn't know if he wanted to do that or be in a relationship where we travel forever and don't ever settle down and have kids. So that was kind of my one. I need to confirm that we can be on the same page about this, and the rest of it we can figure out.
I find it so fascinating that you guys were more just not like talking about deep stuff. It was more just like really getting to know each other as friends, and that's how it progressed. Like it's interesting to me that that's how it went down.
Yeah, and our relationship, our friendship, started, as Cassie said, it was just, platonic, and we were just like, here and there we'd chat. But then over time it grew and it grew to the point where she was someone I definitely wanted at my birthday, So the friendship had grown and developed from just two people that were sort of staying in touch.
I gotta plot out this I don't even know, like Cassie's timeline or something, like a vision board from like the beginning of you meeting Jesse and now to marriage. Your relationship started with you saying, I don't want to be in a serious relationship. I just want to have fun. Let's keep this casual, to then now these conversations about doing life. Do you want kids? And I think that is so interesting, is that you're both different people now from when you first met. And I think that's partly why this works, is that you've evolved so much throughout the years.
I mean, in some ways, I'm glad we didn't meet each other in college. We met each other about as early on in our lives as we probably should have. And yeah, I do think, and even our interests grew in the same path, and that gave us something that I think we really bonded over too. I mean, the wine part will definitely be a part of our future together, and was definitely a huge part in why we kept in touch. I used to look forward to his shipments. I remember one time he sent me a package at work, and all my coworkers knew that this guy would send me wine. And this one said it was from Morocco, and it was in a weird shaped bag. And so I was like, ooh, wine. And so I like opened it up in front of coworkers, and it was like this really nice rug that like matched my room.
Wow.
And I was so caught off guard. I like hid it under the desk and was like, oh. And my best friend was like, why would he send you that? The same one that kind of called it out later. Like, why is he sending you gifts? And I was like, I don't know. This was like right after his
Jesse,
birthday reunion. Yeah.
This was after my birthday. I was in Morocco, and Morocco is known for all their, hand woven this and that. And, I don't know if it was like a gift for being my first wine club person, doing like a thank you for housing all this wine, or maybe it was just something that I was feeling inside and just, wanted to send her something nice, thinking of her kind of thing. But yeah, the timeline, that was after the birthday. And it was 7 or 8 months after that we go on our trip.
Wow.
But, as she says, we're growing, we're changing, but we also realize during this time how much we have in common, which I think is really great. From a outdoorsy perspective, we love anything to do with hiking and snowboarding and jet skiing and snowmobiling and everything. I proposed to her on Everest Base Camp after a 12-day hike.
Yeah, tell us about the proposal.
Okay.
Give us a timeline first. How long had you been dating or living together until you proposed?
Yeah, so we had been living together for about a year. I was thinking about proposing. We had a bunch of trips lined up, and I was like, oh, it'd be fun to do it on a trip, make it special. We were going to Burgundy in France in September, so that would have been 9 months after I moved back. But then I was like, oh, that might be a little soon. But at that point, I was ready. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind that she was going to be the one. And it ended up being a year after we went to Nepal for the Everest Base Camp hike. And so I hid this engagement ring deep in my luggage through about 4 different airports and through about 10 days of hiking. And then at the very top, 18,600 feet, I get on a knee.
Well, no wonder Cassie says she blacked out, probably because it was like elevation sickness.
The cold, the elevation, and the surprise. I mean, he had hit it very well. I honestly had 0% clue it was coming. He had my best friend lie and say that, oh, he'll start to look soon, but it's not looking for rings, blah, blah, blah. So I really had no clue.
Yeah, I wanted it to be a surprise. Yeah, that's how we got engaged. And then right after that, actually before that, Cassie had quit her job and we were supposed to be traveling the world in 2020. A la Jessie Nomad. Here we go, round 2. As it happened, it didn't work out that way. In March, COVID hit. We had 2 great months in South Africa. And then we came home, spent some time in Carmel.
It's been great though, because putting aside all the, we have a lot of the same interests and activities, but it's also been kind of nice spending so much time together, just hanging out at home too. And so.
Yeah, and we ended up launching our own wine blog and website where we write about different wine regions around the world. And we had a micro wedding on a vineyard and sort of just...
Yeah, it was beautiful. Nice. In Paso, right?
Yeah. Paso Robles, yeah.
So you guys both obviously had such different life experiences coming into this. What do you think you both have learned or brought to this relationship from your respective pasts?
Oh, really?
ladies first.
Jesse's send a lot of memes and wine.
Exactly. No, I think for me, it's really a trusting of a gut instinct, right? I think that's what it came down to for both of us is you can put all these things in your head of pros and cons and overthink things and this and that. But I think generally deep down, when someone's someone that you could see yourself with. And that, I know it never left me, even though I had decided I was okay with it not working out. That was still there. And so for me, just never letting that go, follow your instincts and your guts.
Yeah. I am so happy that I had that, mindset to just say, I'm not going to settle. I'm not going to just find what's easy and, safe. Mm-hmm. I'm going to leave the States. I'm going to go travel the world because then I really learned a ton about myself. You're alone a lot, as Cassie said earlier. You need to be independent. And I think having all those experiences really led me to realize how truly unique it is when you can connect with someone on so many different levels, so many common interests, and whether, and then switching gears and talking about something very serious that just happened in the news and having the same humor, all those things and being aware to realize that, I think was, something that came from all those experiences. And then when it was there and it was happening, I knew I had to do something about it, or else I wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if we would be together if you hadn't moved away in some ways. I'm really not sure we would. Mm-hmm. I think you learned a lot about yourself and were almost more comfortable with settling down because you'd taken the time. And then it also pushed us not to have that kind of physical relationship or that easy, like, oh, let's just go do this activity together. And then that's that, and that's the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that you listened to yourself and what you wanted to do and needed to do, and that kind of brought you to knowing enough about yourself to figure out what you wanted long term.
Yeah, I think that's a really good kind of segue to takeaways from this amazing story that you've shared with us. And I think ultimately, like, when you are ready, you're ready. And I think sometimes we want to jump ahead, but we have like life outside of relationships too that help us develop and grow as people. And that's when you become ready. I feel like we're all like conditioned to specific timelines of when we need to do things, but ultimately all of us are kind of individuals and I need to work on our own timelines and discover ourselves. And I love what you said, Jessie, about like ultimately like this was just like something I needed in my life. And like I was ready to take whatever risk to have Cassie in my life. And like there's all the stuff, all the experiences people can do in life, but ultimately like the people in our lives really are like so unique. That's like the things you can't reproduce. And my other takeaway is just like solid relationships are built on friendship. And I love like just your whole path of friendship. And I can see just from talking to you all, like just how solid that friendship is, even when it's now in the sense of a romantic relationship and marriage.
Absolutely. I feel like you two are the epitome of throwing out all the dating rules because you probably broke all the dating rules and all the dating books from all the dating experts.
Oh, we broke everyone.
You broke all the rules.
We're not explicitly saying some of them, but we broke them.
It just shows that you break the rules to create your own rules. And that's why this relationship works. And Jessie, you said something that really, I think, just speaks volumes for your relationship. As you said, I was not ready for a relationship. I was ready for a relationship with Cassie. Right. It's about her. It's not just about, oh, all of a sudden I'm ready to commit. Let's find whoever. Right. It's about being with Cassie. And I think that's the important parts that I think love is rare. It is something that we all want and something we look for, but it's not something that you can just get once you're ready for or whatever. So when you do find it, I think a lot of times in dating, we are so scared to put ourselves out there, to take a risk and just say, let's sit back and see what happens. Let's just hang out. Like, let's see what happens. Let's see where life takes us. But sometimes when you think a love or a connection that's so rare, it's worth putting yourself out there, knowing that you're not tied to an outcome, knowing that this could be the worst thing that could happen or the best thing that could happen to you. But all it takes is for you to step forward and put yourself out there. So I commend both of you for doing that. The other takeaway I have from this entire conversation is I think we just all have to do it our way. I don't want people to listen to this episode and this story and think, oh, the guy I went on a few dates with who doesn't want to commit to me, I'm just going to wait and maybe he'll go to Antarctica and like things will get better. I'm just going to wait. Like we can't create that false hope either. Exactly. But ultimately, we can't wait for people. We can't wait for things to happen. But creating your own, making it your own, making dating your own is the way to do it, and not thinking that, well, this worked for other people. Well, if it worked for other people, doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to work for you. End of the day, we got to follow our gut, and following our gut sometimes goes against what you've heard from other people too. So kind of like carving out your own way of dating is really, really important.
And I think just to add on one thing that you were saying about like people that are thinking like, oh, I'm going to get the guy that like moved to Antarctica. Like, I think the biggest thing that Cassie, you just moved on with your life. Like, you weren't thinking like, oh, I'm messaging Jessie to like try to get him back and like have this like whole concoction plan like set up. It was like only in those times when you can kind of be more organic, that's when things play out. It's never when you're like sitting waiting for something to actually play in.
I also am not sure it really would have worked out well between us if we both, but especially me, hadn't moved on, because I think there would have been resentment. And I think we would have had to not talk at all and things just would have been more damaging. But we really were able to both say, nope, we have our own independent lives and it's better that we're not together. But there somehow was always just still something to keep us on that friendship level that kind of brought us back together. But we really both definitely moved on with our lives. And I think that really ended up playing out well for us.
For anybody listening to this podcast right now who may be down about dating, maybe they're thinking, wow, I've been in the dating scene for a long time. I'm really looking for a connection, looking for love. I'm just not finding it and I'm getting disappointed left and right. What is some advice you would give to anybody, which is a lot of people, who feel really alone in this experience and who feel like they're ready to give up on finding love?
My advice would be don't dwell on it. Don't focus on it. It will come. It'll come because it'll come for you when you're least expecting it. Instead of beating yourself up over it, oh, I haven't met the right person and everything, focus on something else. Make yourself more interesting. Find a new hobby. Go take up something that you've always wanted to do. Put your mind and energy in such better places. There's so many better things you could do with your time and than worry about, oh, woe is me and oh, there's not enough good guys and everything. You put yourself out there, you start doing things that you actually want to do. You start loving yourself and start being independent. Well, then there's going to be a good outcome no matter what. Because if you love yourself and then that special someone never comes around, then, oh well, you still love yourself and it's great. I think being independent and finding out who you are inside is always a important first step there to the puzzle. And maybe it could be a good advice for someone who's kind of struggling and maybe needs to take a step back.
Yeah, and I would say definitely put yourself out there, but yeah, what Jesse said, don't focus on it. I would personally redirect my energy towards relationships in general, not necessarily a romantic relationship. I think you often can find partners through that, and even if your eventual partner comes through other channels, you'll need strong friendships to get you through it. So, there are other relationships I think that you can focus on and drive a lot of energy into that are also really important, and that time will come, often when you don't expect it. But definitely agree with Jesse. Put yourself and your other relationships first, and things will come.
I remember getting that advice from a friend. That was when I was in the thick of really going on tons of dates, them being you're just trying too hard. Just do it. It'll come when you least expect it. I remember in the moment I was oh my God, this is the most annoying advice to hear. But then I did do that. And that's when I did meet someone when it was totally unexpected. And I was just living life and, all that stuff. So I totally agree with you. It's just one of those things when you're in the thick of it, sometimes you're just why? And we're always looking for a solution, and sometimes it really is what you just said is how do I build myself up to the person I want to be yet remain open for when someone does cross my path. And that's the challenge, right?
Love it. Well, thank you two so much. What is the name of your wine blog?
It's called The Wine Scribes. Winescribes.com. We're on Instagram and online. And our ultimate dream is to start our own small label. So if you want to follow along, hit us up. If you have any questions, let us know.
I love it. Ooh. It's always good to find one connection with someone, because I'm sure every time you are at a winery, Jesse, you're oh, I should hit up Cassie. It's an instant reminder, a subconscious reminder,
Yeah, definitely. I want to do one last exercise with you two, because I'm just so curious what you would say to this. If you had to choose one word to describe your relationship, don't say it yet. Just think about it. I'm going to give you a second. And don't say it, don't tell each other. And on the count of 3, you're both going to say that word at the same time. I'm just so curious what you would both say. So take a second. Let me know when you've found your word.
Mine's 2 that's
3 words.
One word.
I'm trying to think of the word to put my 2 words together.
It's a mashup.
We're probably thinking the same word. We had our vows, and we both used the same quote from a song in our vows.
Oh, amazing.
I have mine. 1, 2, 3. Adventure.
Same page
and adventure? Interesting.
Interesting.
Oh, which is kind of the same thing.
Right.
You're both adventurous, so you're on the same page.
It was an adventure to get here. Life is funny, and sometimes it works this way, sometimes it doesn't. I think it's a great story, and it's fun re-sharing it in the podcast community. So
for me, our story has changed multiple times, right? But each time we're just always in sync, and we're always ready to change it for each other, but also kind of wanting the same things out of it. And I think that's been a really cool adventure for us to go through together, and help push each other in good ways, but know that we're always going to be supportive and kind of on the same page for what's coming next.
Yeah. and excited for future adventures, whatever that may be. Yeah.
Thank you two so much for sharing your story and for opening our eyes to how love can work and the many different ways that love can work in the different timelines that people can be on. So I think this is going to be a really great episode for anybody who's just like, when is it going to be my time, right? Also, for anybody listening, if you enjoy this episode, please give us a rating in Apple Podcasts. It really helps us deepen our relationship with you when you give us a good 5-star review, and it shows our love and your love for each other. So that's where we can find love, is in Apple Podcasts, giving us a good review.
Pay it forward.
Is that a good tie-in?
Pay it forward.
That was awesome.
Drink your wine. Drink your wine. Leave us a review. It's all good. Find your person.
All right. And in true Dateable fashion, we're going to wrap this up.
Stay
Dateable.
dateable.
The Dateable Podcast is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. Find more podcasts you'll love at frolic.media/podcasts. Want to continue the conversation? First, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the handle @Dateable Podcast. Tag us in any post with the hashtag StayDateable, and trust us, we look at all of those posts. Then head over to our website, dateablepodcast.com. There you'll find all the episodes as well as articles, videos, and our coaching service with vetted industry experts. You can also find our premium Why series, where we dissect, analyze, and offer solutions to some of the most common dating conundrums. We're also downloadable for free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Overcast, Stitcher Radio, and other podcast platforms. Your feedback is valuable to us, so don't forget to leave us a review. And most importantly, remember to stay dateable.